Test 1, 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2. All right, everyone ready? All right, I think we're online. Apologies for the delay. The time is now 6:18. We will go ahead and get started this evening. When you are speaking, please make sure to unmute your microphone to be heard. This is a public broadcast. If you did not register in advance, people can watch through our YouTube service by going to the city's YouTube channel. For live Spanish translation service, please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091 star for Spanish translation services.
I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Will staff please perform a roll call?
Commissioner Sanchez.
Sorry. Did you call my name?
Yes, yes.
I'm
Commissioner.
present. I didn't
It's
hear.
okay. Commissioner Van Heusen,
Present.
Commissioner Biltoff,
Present.
Commissioner Schechter,
Present.
Commissioner Nelson,
Present.
Commissioner, you have a quorum.
Will everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I please have a motion to approve the February 4th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Sanchez and a second by Commissioner Schechter. Please open electronic voting. The motion passes 5 yeses, 0 no, 0 abstain. Announcing case V21-0001, Revesco Vacation. I will open the public hearing for this case and will ask Planner Nick Berry to please announce the case.
V25-0001. Revesco Properties is requesting to vacate an access easement commonly known as East 103rd Place, which is approximately 886 feet in length, extending west of Peoria Parkway towards Peoria Street. The subject easement is generally between East 104th Avenue and the Excel power lines. At this time, staff will perform a presentation with the applicant to address the commission following the presentation. All right, so before you this evening, case V25-0001, known as the Revesco Vacation. So for those attending for the first time this evening or watching virtually, what is a vacation? So a vacation is used to eliminate public rights of way or easements that are no longer needed. The actual development details will be reviewed through separate applications known as development plans, or as we call them, PUD permits occasionally. Vacations of active rights of way and easements are heard both by the Planning Commission and the City Council. So what is the Planning Commission making a recommendation on? Well, whether the vacation or right of way or access easement renders any parcel inaccessible or reduces the quality of public services that are being provided to any parcels. For some context, this is a subject property outlined in black. You can kind of see the dirt road there on the aerial is what is currently being used as that access easement. Here is the zoning map. As you can see, this property is located within the Turnberry PUD. The Turnberry PUD extends south and north of this property. So the location of the subject easement is west of Peoria Parkway between 104th and Excel power lines. Again, it is approximately 886 feet in length. There are some other applications that are on file with the city. Those include S24-0014, Turnberry Filing 2, Amendment 1, PUDP 24-0010 is for the infrastructure related to the new access easement that's being dedicated by that Turnberry Filing 2 Amendment 1 plat. And then lastly, we have PUDP 24-0018, which is the PUD permit for the development of Lot 1, a future fueling station. So site overview for you, as I mentioned, it is a unimproved dirt road addressed as East 103rd Place. That application S24-0014 will establish a new access easement to replace the functions of the current easement. The current easement only connects to Peoria Parkway. The future easement will connect both to Peoria Parkway and East 104th Avenue. And then lastly, the future access will shift about 50 feet further south, creating greater spacing from 104th Avenue, which will ultimately be a better or safer turning movement coming out of the subject property. To date, staff has received no public comment. We wanted to provide this image for you. It was also included into your packet. But so the red is the access easement presently, and then the green is the new access easement to be dedicated by that plat application S24-0014. As you can see, it's shifting a little bit further away from 104th Avenue, and it will replace essentially the function of what the current access easement does. Here's the approval criteria for a vacation. Staff has conducted analysis in your packet, and also at the conclusion of this presentation, we can get into the analysis of this approval criteria if it's desired by the commission. Some considerations for your discussion. The concurrent plat will create a new traffic pattern, which is more connected to the existing roadways and safer. And then the vacation of this easement will allow for the future development at the corner of 104th Avenue and Peoria Parkway. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission enter a finding that the vacation meets all of the approval criteria and therefore recommends approval to City Council. Staff is available for questions, and the applicant is also present for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Berry, did the applicant want to make a presentation, or anything, or the applicant like to step forward and address the commission at this time, or?
There you go. Thank you for the time this evening. I appreciate everybody.
Oh, and I'm sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
I
Yeah,
apologize.
if you could
Yeah.
state your name and address for the
Great.
record.
Thank you. Nick Allen. I am representing Revesco Properties. We're a developer in Denver, Colorado, and we're partnered with the landowner on this development at East 104th and Highway 2. So thank you. I got ahead of myself, and I just want to thank the commission for being out here. I have no presentation to make, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you and also Nick for helping us with this process. And I'm here to answer any questions you have regarding the development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Allen? Is there any questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Sanchez.
Can you just provide a little historical context with regard to the RTD temporary station and how that all works into this? Because I guess I'm just not aware of that right now.
Sure. Okay, so
Thank you.
you have Turnberry Filing 2, which was approved and recorded in 2005. The access easement was granted to the city in 2007, which then allowed for the development of the temporary RTD station. The RTD station is there on a lease basis and are not a property owner.
Thank you.
Any questions from the other commissioners? Seeing none. Are there, do any members of the public wish to provide comments on this case? Seeing none. Is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak? If I can get that out.
No one has signed up to speak and no one has raised their hand to currently speak.
Thank you. At this time, I will now close the public hearing for this case. Is there any additional discussion from the commission? Seeing none, can we please have a motion?
I would like to enter a motion. I move that the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested vacation of easement contained in case V 25-0001 meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the City Council approve the vacation of easement.
I second that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Huzen and a second by Commissioner Sanchez, I believe. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, please open electronic voting on the case. The motion passes 5 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstains. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Allen and thank you. Is there any commission business to discuss at this time? Seeing none, hearing none. Is there any attorney business to discuss at this time?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any staff business to discuss at this time?
Just Commission wanted to give you an update on the council last night denied the car wash in Turnberry. And so that case will not be moving forward and the project will not be moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. The time is now 6:30 and the regular meeting is adjourned. The Planning Commission will take a brief recess and reconvene for a study session on Land Development Code, Public Engagement Plan, and the Commission's rules. Okay.
So, given how much trouble we had getting the technology going tonight, we're thinking of staying here for the study session instead of going to 2108. That way we don't have to disrupt the technology and start over, if that's okay with you. Okay,
Seeing a bunch of nods, I think that
Okay.
works for us.
thank you.
I'm going to
Still take a minute.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
And the problem is it takes my eyes like 2 or 3 seconds to adjust.
I have like different readers for different distances. It kind of really sucks, but yeah. Oh, is that right?
I know what it's saying, so I can kind of.
Good. Yeah, yeah.
you know, their timeframe and.
So I was able to attend.
Okay.
I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I see some stories.
Mhm.
And maybe understand how some of the decisions not.
Okay. Well, I mean, the decisions that were made relate to like the park parcel.
They say they're only responsible for towns. So the question is, when is the city going to be other? And the other thing was, close street, on our houses. Yeah, so. Looks like.
Well, you did a good job.
Hospital, you know, it's proposed, but it's not definitely. And
Maybe it's
also.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
And yeah, it's like, what's the time frame for that?
Okay. Yeah, the timeframes are what I know. I know there's been thousands of drive there.
And those are, you know, they were talking about.
Oh.
I think somebody that I work with.
If you're saying if we take it to the further station. I think so. Let's see.
I'll give you my contact and then I can make a connection for you. So he's engineering mechanics. His name is Greg Odell. He can only use my phone. And I met you at the. Yeah. Yeah. So Mark emailed me. The other people know about things that. Yeah. I mean, I was there not used to it. When it comes to infrastructure. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to pull this?
Okay.
I was gonna say you pull one, but your screen, you can just. Oh, God. Yeah, okay.
Oh, really? Oh, I see. Yes, yes. No, no. But okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll. It's not. Ah, yeah, true, true. I'm sorry, I haven't. Oh, shit. Thank you.
So Commission, if you're ready to get started, we'll get going here. Thanks for staying in this room. We've got the first study session is to talk about the public engagement plan for the Land Development Code. And I'm going to let Sung reintroduce himself to you. He's going to be presenting tonight.
Great. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Sung Han. I'm the new principal planner focused on long-range planning for the city. I met some of you a month ago, and that was actually week 1 for me. So this is about week 4 or 5. So great to be here. We got a great team, and look forward to working with you all. So next slide, please. So in terms of the purpose for tonight's study session, it's really to review and get your feedback on the preliminary approach to community engagement. And so we'll provide a brief overview of kind of where we've been so far with the engagement process, and some of the engagement goals and strategies that we will rely on in this last phase of the Land Development Code update. And then just a quick update on the project timeline, highlighting some of the key milestones ahead with respect to engagement and with respect to the project as a whole. And then we do have a couple of key questions for the commission to discuss today to just better guide our kind of thinking and decisions around how we approach engagement come late spring, early summer. So just a quick summary of where we've been. So this project, I believe, started off at the spring of 2023. And that was really focused on the existing conditions of the code. So really trying to understand what are the key issues, what are the priorities for this update. And so there was, I think, a couple of open houses that were hosted at that time to really start that conversation with the community and the development community about, with respect to what you're seeing out in the built environment, what are the priorities you think that needs to be focused on as part of this code update? And what are the key issues that you think are most relevant to really touch upon in this update? And then moving forward in the summer of 2024, another couple of open houses were hosted, and I think also a variety of different pop-up events at the kind of, I think it was a concert at the parks that's done here. And that's really focused on, okay, so now what we've heard, now we've studied kind of the key issues. Here are some of the big ideas and concepts that will guide the specific updates to the Land Development Code. So I believe that first phase in summer of 2024 was really focused on the design and subdivision standards. And then most recently, I think in January, just a month ago, we had the consultants back to talk a little bit about zone districts, uses and the procedures, and really also just outline really the key chapters of the code. And you guys got a sense of that last time we met. And so really, so far we've been talking about the key issues, the priorities for the update, what are the big ideas and concepts, and really when we come to back to the community in late spring, early summer, this is the first time they'll be able to see the full draft code and see everything holistically together. And so just a quick summary of the engagement by the numbers. Again, I think with each round of the community engagement, there were 2 open houses, which equals to about 6 community open houses, several city council and planning commission study sessions to dig into the details a bit more, and then a different engagement approach where we're not, hosting open house, but really being out in the community. So I think a couple visits to the rec centers to get both the kind of residents that are living in the northern end of town and in the core part of the city. Again, the music and the parks to really just engage with folks that may not, know what zoning is, but they're just kind of hanging out in the park, and we kindly interrupt them and have them have the conversation about land use with us. So far with that, we've had about 150 people engaged throughout the process. And then I believe also early in the process, there were several stakeholder interviews and focus groups with the development and design community. Next. And so here are some of the kind of 4 goals that we're leaning on to help guide decisions about how we approach community engagement in this next couple of months. The first is make it easy. We know zoning could be fairly daunting at times, so we want to offer ways to make participation easier and more convenient. So for folks that are, maybe it's easier to just talk to staff, we'll have opportunities for that. Maybe if it's more of a self-paced opportunity to provide input, we'll also have online surveys. So really just tailoring the engagement materials and questions so that they're easy to understand. And then the input that they provide is valuable and helps to refine the code further. The second is to reach a broad audience. So we want to reach a broad and diverse audience. It's not just development and design community, but it's the residents and business owners. So again, we'll have to tailor the format of the engagement and the questions in a way that's really meaningful and digestible for the different stakeholder groups. And the third is to educate participants about their role in the project in a clear and understandable way. Again, zoning can be fairly technical. So as we engage residents, we want to be careful about the language we use. It's not too jargony, so it's not too intimidating, but it's that it's approachable, and helping people understand what is and what isn't the land development code, and just really establishing the the role of the land development code early on in the process. And the last is promoting transparency and accountability. I know sometimes, community members that are involved in engagement processes, they provide the input, but they don't really understand or hear back in terms of how their input has shaped the changes. So one thing we are planning to do is once the public review draft is out there and our engagement is done, we'll provide us an engagement summary to report back on what we've heard and how that's guided some of the changes in the public hearing draft of the land development code. So really just kind of closing in that engagement loop. So moving on to the different stakeholder groups, and I touched upon this a little bit in the previous slides, but we understand that there are various users of the code from the residents, developers and builders, business and commercial industrial property owners. So we really, again, want to focus on tailoring the content engagement in a meaningful way that provides the project team with the best input to move forward. And so moving on to engagement strategies, to accommodate for the different stakeholders and maybe the level of expertise or interest in the land development code project, we want to rely on multiple different strategies that allow us to have the broad reach that we need and want. And so that could include community meetings, traditional open houses, perhaps the pop-up events we've done in the past of going out into the community where people are to get their direct feedback. And also opportunities for online to be able to maybe engage at their own pace, at their own location. And one unique feature that we will have is the ability to directly comment on the draft. So if people want to roll up their sleeves, dive into the details, they can do so. And then the office hours is something that we're planning to use to just, again, be flexible with our time as staff to have designated time during the week to really just let community members or the business and development community to schedule time to talk directly with staff and help get answers to their questions. And then the last two is really focused on that focused outreach about tailoring the group discussions and the format in a way that is specific to the audience. So whether that is a roundtable discussion with the development community or just reaching out to RNOs and just asking if they would like us to attend their meetings and talk about the land development code. So really, again, just thinking broad in terms of how do we reach a lot of people, as many people as possible, but also allowing for more focused venues and formats to have more deeper dive discussions. And so in terms of next steps, this is a quick outline of a project, our project timeline with key milestones ahead. We are working on a draft website right now to really just update kind of the background information about the land development code, how folks can stay engaged and learn about the different events coming up. We hope to have that live by the end of this month. And we also hope to have the public review draft of the land development code in mid-April, around the same time our next joint planning commission and city council study session is scheduled. And then once we have that public review draft, that's when we would start our outreach for about a month and a half or so. leading into our June joint study session with City Council. And so that would be an opportunity to really reflect on the input. Here's what we've heard from our outreach so far and potential changes that we might want to consider as part of the public hearing adoption draft, which it will come in mid-July. And that really starts the public adoption hearing process, where it will likely come back to Planning Commission at the end of July or early August, and with tentatively City Council adopting the Land Development Code around mid-September or so. So really, this is the last slide here in terms of the key questions. The two key questions are, what topics or aspects of the Land Development Code do you think residents would be most interested in? I know you guys got a high-level overview about the different topics and kind of standards that are within the Land Development Code. So based on your engagement with the community in your own personal or professional lives, what aspects of the Land Development Code do you think will resonate most with the community, and do you think they will care most about? And then the second question is really about format. I listed out maybe 5 or 6 different options in terms of how we can spend our time and resources engaging with the community. And so what type of engagement format do you think would resonate most and residents would appreciate most? And then on the right-hand side of the page there are just a reminder of the key topics that the Land Development Code touches upon if you just need a refresher from last month's presentation. I think that's
So we want to pause. Well, let's pause on these questions.
Yep, I think that's the last slide too.
So that's our last slide for you, but let's pause on these questions and ask for your feedback on these 2 questions. We can take the first one, the top one first. What topics or aspects of the LDC do you think residents would be most interested in? And then again, the key topics in the Land Development Code are in the green on the right side of the screen.
So I think for the key topics, because it seems that most people don't care about how the sausage is made. They want to just see the sausage. So just my engagement with people, it seems they're more curious about what's coming down the pipe. So I would be curious as to what staff sees when people actually engage in the process with the city, and that they're having, that if it was people coming in to change their zoning, like what's coming through the door. Because I don't know if, I think most people that a lot of this is above most people's heads, and they won't engage in it unless it's something that impacts them.
Well, when we had our public open house, the most people were interested in like the design standards. When we talked about, parking and landscaping, building design, they could relate to that because they can see it out in the built environment. Zone districts are a little more ethereal. It's a little harder for them to get their arms around different zone districts. Development procedures, we'd really have to focus on, where the public input comes into play in terms of neighborhood input meetings, public hearings, and where they have a chance to connect with the city on proposed developments. But generally, in terms of what we see coming in the door, we have a lot of PUD amendments. We have a lot of zoning. Most of what we do is development plans, and the commission and the council don't see those because they're administrative. So that's everything from new retail, commercial buildings that we do. So I'd say subdivision plats and development plans are our most common thing, but those are administrative functions.
And then to follow up on that, because about not wanting to know how the sausage is made, but what the sausage is going to be, I would think of it would be related to what the city is driving towards in terms of economic development, things that the city's trying to bring in. If there were key stakeholders to those industries or that sort of development, I think that would be good that would be good feedback to get. Because if you're trying to draw that industry or those businesses into the city, you could get feedback from them as what they could see as potential pitfalls, or they could give feedback that it might help them to drive to development in Commerce City. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that part of that could be addressed in perhaps in the zone districts, because the zone districts are intended to implement the different character areas that are envisioned in a comp plan, which gets to that point about what's the type of uses and business we're trying to attract. So I think we can be maybe just tailor the zone districts and maybe message it in a way that's a little bit more meaningful and or resonates in that way, the way you're talking about it.
Because that's what I always hear is like, especially on the North Range, people always curious about, we want a grocery store, we want more restaurants. So it'd be, how do these things get developed inside of the city? So to the transparency portion of it, so people can see this is what needs to happen to have these businesses here. So it's, because I think some people perceive that there's some impediment that might be out there that might not be true. So if they can see whatever the process is to bring these businesses here, that might help.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to talk about the connection to economic development. And I think we need to bring them into this process because you're right. That's what most residents think about when they think about development is, how do I get new restaurants? How do I get a grocery store? And to the extent that, we're bound by the market and what the market is going to bear and what comes in the door, the city doesn't, to some extent, we try to recruit businesses and bring new businesses in. But a lot of it is just reacting to who wants to develop. And so explaining how that economic development process works, I think is helpful.
I would agree. Yeah, to kind of strip away some of that perceived barrier between developers and the public to help build rapport. So.
Mhm. I have a topic. Yeah,
Sorry.
or
Stop.
are you up? Oh, go for it. Here, I'll use the new button.
Okay, thank you. So with the land development code, the things that I've heard more often, once we explain the difference between zoning and PUDs and land development code, has been more about parking requirements for different businesses or residents, as well as ingress and egress and accessibility. Then, of course, a big one is always the landscaping and requirements for certain types of tree canopy or street side and sidewalks. So those are the things most of the people, after I tell them, a grocery store is not going to go into an area that is not zoned already for that type of retail. But if a grocery store were to go in, the requirements for the grocery store is what the LDC covers.
I think he means like driveways.
Yeah, so you're speaking more the site design and kind of there's building design, but the design of the site itself and the parking, the circulation, the landscaping that kind of puts the finishing touches on.
Correct. Yeah, that's what they seem to do. It's like if we're going to have a grocery store, is there going to be parking in front of it, or is it going to have to be behind the grocery store? And how many spaces would be allocated for something like a grocery store compared to if it were a daycare center?
Anything else, Commissioner Van Huzen? Commissioner Schechter?
So I think one topic or aspect that residents would be interested in would be the part of the development code. I guess it's probably design standards that affects that basically regulates the exterior appearance of buildings. yeah, the walk up, as you walk up to a commercial establishment, things like this. So, and so I can give like an example of where this is kind of where this is an issue that people have mentioned. This is, so for example, East 104th and Tower, which is right now, we had the dispensary rezoning and things like this going on there. And, people have wanted the development there to continue. And now it's going to continue. But like, definitely a lot of people feel that this is kind of like a gateway or entrance into Commerce City, an entrance into Reunion. And it's sort of like a real keystone important intersection. This is how people come in for the airport or wherever, and this is where they first see the city. And where am I going with this? Oh yeah, and so I like basically the idea that we can maybe be a little more proactive as far as actually, regulating or controlling what the exterior appearance looks like. And I can give like 2 examples of what I'm kind of talking about in my mind. On one hand, I have the counter example of the social cannabis dispensary in Golden. And I'm thinking I can talk about social cannabis. This is not a current issue, is that right? This isn't the current matter before the board. Okay. So I've talked with with Scott, I believe his name is, the CEO of Social Cannabis a lot. So nothing I'm saying here is anything new to him. But basically, they see their Golden location. That was their like showcase location. They're able to design it exactly as they like. But like to me, and I blogged about it, and I think some other people, it looks really down market. It's not the look that we want. It looks kind of dilapidated, for example. Looks very random, maybe thrown together in an afternoon. I'm just talking about the exterior appearance. So it's kind of the counterexample of, maybe for a specific showcase location that we wouldn't want. And I think it'd be okay to put that in the code. And I think other people are open to that idea without impinging too much on the rights of onto property rights. On the other side of the spectrum is the blue McDonald's in Sedona, Arizona. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. So Sedona, Arizona has, they have a brand, they have a city color. It's turquoise, the turquoise jewelry. The only McDonald's arches in the world that are turquoise blue are in Sedona. They were, through basically this kind of regulation, what I'm talking about, they were actually able to get McDonald's to change the color of their arches. Now, I'm in no way suggesting that we need something that strong, but I'm just saying that's actually possible. It's kind of amazing. We're also no Sedona. I get that. We don't have that kind of role and kind of place, but definitely, I think there's somewhere in the middle. And to be honest, I'm not too familiar with the current land development code and what we're going to be coming up with, but basically to be able to say that, yeah, we can have an area where it has to have whatever, like an upkept, upmarket appearance, if that's what this particular location is.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense. I think sometimes when you look at the land development code, you might see the illustrations and drawings, but to know where they actually go on the map is helpful. So I think maybe we can make that easier in terms of, hey, these are the building design standards for X and Y, Z type of building projects, and this is kind of where it goes. And it probably is within those gateway locations of where we anticipate the commercial anchor. So I think reassuring that and connecting those dots will be pretty critical. So yeah, I agree with you. Thank you.
Cool. I like that. Like another example of what I'm talking about is the car wash that now is not going to happen. That was actually a complex issue for me to talk about because like I thought that was the most beautiful car wash I'd ever seen. To be honest, it just didn't meet our elements for approval. But I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. So yeah, something like that in the car wash, anyhow, just something that made me think about this. Yeah. Okay, that's what I had.
Well, and that triggered one other point, I think, to Commissioner Schechter's point. It would also about, and this may be an education piece because there's been some feedback about materiality and specifying specific materiality that's not applicable to certain zone districts, that may limit good design by limiting material types. So I could think, I just noticed on one of, there was a comment about, people brought up about CMU and houses. But I can think of a lot of attractive, really well-designed houses that use CMU blocks. So I don't know, it's a very fine line to what Commissioner Schechter was saying, is I don't know if we need to be the arbiters of materiality of buildings. I think it might be some education to the public of this is a possibility, but there also needs to be guide rails put in so it's not just a free range that, where like Frank Gary's house, I don't know if people are familiar with that or who Frank Gary is, but that was one of his big things, was a big challenge to his local or it was a HOA and the local zone districts, where he took all the materials and put them on their heads. So there's chain link up on the top of his house, and it was all of the material where you could use it by these percentages, and that was his response. So it's like that outside of the box thinking. So there needs to be guide rails on it, but I think it's, in some of this, there may be an education component because people might not know what they're looking for because they haven't seen that before, like with the zoning code, or like what this is actually informing, to your point. I think there may be some of that this is the actual impact that this would have. I don't know if like a case study per se, but it would, because it's those land development code is written so nebulous because it gives whoever's developing the property, the parameters of this is what it needs to be, but people sometimes have a hard time visualizing those things.
Anything else on that topics before we move on to what engagement format you think residents would most appreciate? Go back to those engagement slides.
Yeah, sure. I would, so could be helpful. Oh, I think you skipped it.
Not this one.
Now it's the one with the arrow. Or
This
just,
one.
yeah.
So this slide shows you different engagement strategies. So, we'll have opportunity for community meetings, pop-up events, online surveys, neighborhood engagement. Which of these do you think are the most focused or the best way to reach residents?
I know that causation isn't correlation, but in past experience, what have you all seen? Since this has happened in the past and looking back at the comprehensive plan engagement as well, I know that was a different time and a lot of that happened during COVID, but from past experience, just for the demographics in our community, what has been the best?
Yeah,
engagement?
so I haven't been involved in the comp plan, but just based on my previous experience in working with similar types of projects, I think it depends. I think when you host community meetings, you're attracting people that are already interested, that might know the substance of what you're dealing with. So when they come, you're able to have more in-depth discussions with them on engagement. Versus when we're out in the community, you're really just talking with people that showed up at a park trying to listen to music, and you have a table set up, and you're able to reach more people, but maybe their level of interest or knowledge about the process isn't the same, and so they might, provide you with maybe some comments that are surface level, but won't be able to get into the weeds with you. So I think there are just kind of different trade-offs associated with it, but I think the pop-ups and neighborhood events are very helpful in terms of getting a good geographic representation, because if you're showing up to their local park or showing up to their local rec center, you're going to be engaging with folks that live there, and so I think it varies, and that's why I kind of alluded to the fact that we'll likely need to rely on multiple strategies, but just wanted to get a sense of where we might want to lean in more based on your guys' thoughts and opinions.
I have one more point, and then we'll pass it over to Commissioner Sanchez. I was thinking of when we had it was the commission celebration event that we had in the fall, that it may be good to reach out to other committees and commissions inside the city, because those are people that are stakeholders in the city and they have interest in supporting the city. So they could be change agents or torchbearers for this process, because they're obviously interested in the city. So I think that would be another good group to reach out to. Commissioner Sanchez?
Well, you kind of stole my thunder there with the first question there, like what's been effective heretofore. But I guess there are certain groups, community groups, maybe like metro districts seem to be hot topics these days. And, I don't know if there are other just community groups that you could reach out to that probably haven't been, we haven't reached out to them before. And that's all I was thinking about, really what's worked in the past. You said 160 responses. That's not a whole lot for a community this size, or is it? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a specific metric to compare to in our past engagement work. But I think, that's why kind of we're wanting to be really thoughtful about this engagement, because again, this is an opportunity for people to actually see the draft code if they want to, and talk about the concepts a little bit more in detail with staff. And so this is our kind of last big push in terms of trying to involve as many of the people as possible. And so, if we do things like an online survey, I anticipate that we probably reach a lot more than 100 people in total, just because it allows for that kind of participation on their own time. And that's where we really see most of the engagement. And I'm not sure if we leveraged those type of tools in the past. So yeah, but yeah, I think we could do better than 150 for this next phase.
Any other thoughts on this?
Or social media engagement? It's not specifically listed, but I don't know if they're.
Yeah, we'll definitely leverage that. We'll be working with our community relations team to make sure that any kind of content that we're promoting, whether it's an open house and our online survey, is communicated through the city's social media accounts, and then also the monthly newsletter that goes out. So we'll be leveraging a variety of different communication channels. And I think you mentioned a really great one of just reaching out to internal committee members of the city and just relying on their network. Because really what it comes down to is word of mouth is always a little bit best in terms of, neighbors talking to each other about they're going to something versus seeing an advertisement post. So I think that word of mouth will be super critical.
I had a similar thought, what you were saying. I think definitely, a few of our agencies, they use social media. So I'm a principal software engineer. So when I see it, I see places, where it could be used like what I think is better. And I think that not like people would recognize it, but stuff would work better. So for example, one of the things that I'd be happy to talk with staff about, or I think that would help, would be if you're on Facebook, using those native Facebook data types. Like Facebook has an event type. So if you actually create an event, as opposed to just writing a post saying, here's an event, then people can click and add it to their calendars. Or, for example, having maybe this already exists, but having a public Google Calendar that anyone who uses Google Calendars can go and say, subscribe to that. And then on my personal calendar, I can click and enable that and see all the city's events right in my own personal calendar, that kind of thing. So just really going in and leveraging some of these online services deeply for the things they provide.
Yeah, and then that's a great comment. That's actually a conversation we've been having internally about how we can better coordinate as a city in terms of all the events and making that a little bit easier to access too. So great comment. And I think that's something we're trying to aim towards as a city as a whole. So.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I realize y'all have staff and consultants and everything, but I'd be happy to volunteer as a consultant and talk about this. This is the kind of work I do, and analyzing these sorts of things and setting them up.
Great.
I had one other thought pop up just in that relative to the pop-up events. And I noticed this, it was at the Bison Ridge Rec Center, but it was about the playground iterations. And also when they were doing the senior room inside of the rec center. That, excuse me, that they just had very simple poster boards on easels in the lobby as people were walking up to check in. And so you pass it when you're leaving and when you're it's as a community bulletin board. So it's just a very low tech way to get the word out there, but that you would touch a lot of people in the city. If there was any other facilities within the city, maybe even reaching out to the library, some places similar to that, where there would community spaces just to really low tech advertising.
Great. Well, thank you for that feedback tonight. So just again, reminding you of those upcoming joint study sessions. So April 14th is the first one, and then June 9th is the second one. So if you want to get those on your calendars. And then we're looking at that public hearing adoption draft at your July Planning Commission meeting, which would be, I think it's July, I want to say July 2nd. Maybe, hold on, let me look at that.
Have it up here too.
No, July 1st. So we took your feedback about getting a public draft. We're working on that with the consultant. We're currently working on getting some of the state legislation that was passed incorporated into the draft LDC. We've finished updating the procedures based on the city attorney's comments. And we're working on some of the zone districts and the building forms. So that's currently where we're at. And once we have those edits done, then we'll be able to post the public draft up on the website, and we'll of course let you know that it's available. On the April 14th joint study session, we're not going to be speaking to the full draft code. We're going to have a very targeted discussion on the updates that were made to the state based on the state legislation. And we're going to focus in on some of the procedures that the consultant talked to you about, like the preliminary plat, the master development plan, and the limited use permits. So we're going to hone in on those topics on the April 14th study session. And then June 9th, you'll have more of a chance you will have had a chance to digest the draft code. And so you and the council can have more discussion about what feedback we heard during the public engagement and any additional comments that you have on the draft code. We can solicit that to make any final edits before we go to public hearing. The goal is to get the code adopted before the November elections, when we'll have potentially new city council members. So that's why the September date is there.
So I have a question about that, because I was thinking back to the comprehensive plan, and that was one of the big major holdover points. And I think it was one of the things that stalled out the acceptance of that, was that there were revisions that were brought up through the different points that we had. And the final draft that came to us was like, it was 3 days before our meeting to approve it or to recommend it to the city council. And so the time was really compressed. So I think that was one of the things that really stalled it out, was seeing the edits applied to that draft. So I feel like some of the comments just kind of got lost in the wash. So this timing, it seems a little more applicable, or it seems more digestible to
Yeah.
to this
Thank you.
process.
Okay, so anything else on this public engagement plan or timeline for the LDC?
Actually, 'cause at the last planning commission, talked about a study session to talk about the book that you all had provided.
Yes, and that's where we were going to move next.
Okay, sorry.
If we're done with the LDC.
Well, so there was just one point in there,
Mhm.
just to talk about this timeline, is one of the points was to have a open house with the public to say, hey, this is what the planning commission does. Like talk about how we're doing our job, that might be good to get in this, identified in this process, so the public can see how back to that, how the sausage is made comment, that who we are, and they could give some feedback to us and just feel vested in the process. I don't know when that would happen, but I think in this, it might.
So just looking ahead at the calendar, you've got a meeting on May 6th. That's kind of right in the middle of that public engagement. That could be the right time to do that. It's getting a little late to do it at the June
Sure.
3rd. But maybe that May 6th is the right target date.
And I'll open up to
When
the
they
other
have it on
commissioners,
it.
just since I brought this up now, and this is the first time you're really hearing it, I did just some feedback on what you all think about that. I don't want to dictate this to everyone else. Just what you all think on it.
I think it's a good idea to maybe host an open community meet, like a meet and greet. You know, maybe the council people do this, you know, coffee with Craig, and, you know, Charles Dukes does quite a few things where they just have basically an open house. So it could be, you know, office hours with the planning commission, you know, meet the planning commission and express your desires for Commerce City or something. That would be something I think would be an interesting thing to provide.
Anything else? So maybe we could get that tentatively on the calendar for the,
Do you want to do it on a regular meeting night?
I think it is because it's something that's out there in the ether, and the community
Right.
knows that
Knows
that's the
that there's
cadence of
the
our,
cadence of the meetings.
because I
Okay.
even saw that on the, back to the rec centers, that's one of the things that's noted on one of the monitors saying, this is the cadence of the city council meetings.
Mhm.
And then it noted that our meeting was happening tonight and the time.
Okay,
So I think it's,
good.
people might not be digesting that, but it's at
Right.
least out in the
Yeah,
community ether that they know that it's going on.
right. And we know the room's reserved and you all are available. So yeah, that May 6th meeting looks like it's the best. Okay, well, let's shift gears and talk about the book, The Job of the Planning Commissioner, and some of the ideas that you had as takeaways from that read. What I heard at the last meeting was the concept of communication with the city council and communication with the public. And so you're kind of, that's a good segue to talk about how you use the commission as a forum to communicate with the council and with the public.
And so to the point that you made about the adoption of the land development code, I think it makes sense to have a meeting with the new city council after the election. So whether that's in December or January, to understand what that city council what their direction is for the city. Because since we're kind of coming, it seems like a lot of our time is focused on the land development code and cases, that would just be the next lot, to me, the next logical step.
I like that.
Yeah, and you've got extra opportunities to communicate with the council with these joint study sessions. But I hear you saying, wait till after the election.
I think so, just because
November.
it seems that city councils, a lot of their time, I know that they're extremely busy, and a lot of their effort seems to be focused towards the land development code. And I wouldn't want to take away from any traction that effort is undergoing, because that's a very important thing.
We always have a list of tasks for them, so I wouldn't wait for a free time.
But I think if we were to do it December, so after the
Mhm.
election, so December, like, I think that would be a good time, because then, or when, after they're, would it be January? So in January, after they're sworn in,
Yeah, are they sworn in December?
I don't know if it's December, January.
Okay,
It would be just after they're sworn in.
okay, after they're sworn in. Mhm.
Yeah, because I think because the time is so short now. That's just in the grand scheme of things that November will be upon us soon, as it's
Okay.
already March. So,
Well, and you can request joint study sessions with the council, even
Mm.
if we're not talking about the land development code. So you've got opportunities to have that kind of communication and that dialogue.
mm,
Inevitably, we'll have some other, effort, like a sub-area plan or something related to the light rail station that we could be working on. So there's other opportunities moving forward for you to interface with the council. And just generally, what their philosophy is on development so that you're in sync. It's encouraging that they voted the same way you did on the car wash. They only had one member of the public that spoke
mm,
last night. The other gentleman that came to the planning commission wasn't able to be there.
mm.
But they kind of felt like they had a proliferation of car washes and they didn't need another car wash in town. There wasn't as much discussion on the noise as there was at planning commission.
That's good. Yeah, Commissioner Schechter and I were just discussing, I hadn't had a chance to watch the city council meeting, but just the dialogue of that, it seems that we're refining the way that we're collecting our meeting minutes. So they're having a more informed output from our meeting. So I think that was a missing link. And that was actually one of the points that's in here. I think we're actually
Right.
starting to trend and doing a good job doing that.
Yeah, and we do put the minutes in the packet.
Thought it was a productive deliberation that y'all made clear points about why you were saying what you were saying
Mhm.
and how it was connecting to the criteria, which is very helpful for them when they're considering the criteria themselves.
Yeah, I watched the session last night. I have it on while I'm working, I don't just sit there for 3 hours, but yeah, I watched it and then I for that part, I had my full attention and I was really happy with how the city staff showed them what we had deliberated and our decision, and then gave them the procedural posture and explained to them the elements and what they needed to follow, this kind of thing, and how the whole process worked. It was really nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked well last night. Okay, so other thoughts on takeaways you have from reading the book, if you've had a chance to read it, or other thoughts on communication with the public or council?
So I have a couple points. I don't know if I'll go first, and then if anybody else has any thoughts, or if you all have had a chance to look at the book. The ones that, so let's see. So just to get this on calendar. So Ms. Vidlac, you and I had a discussion initially about it was our plan for the year.
Right, a work plan? Mhm.
Yes, so I think we need to annually reexamine what you're doing as a commission and how well you're doing it. So whenever that happened, I think that was maybe in February, wasn't it? Or when was that?
Yeah, it was the end of last year. It
Okay,
was last fall. And we kind of set forth the study sessions through the end of the year and into the new year.
so I would propose we do that as a group, but have that meeting before we meet with city council, just to talk about this is what our agenda and this is what our agenda for the year, and then see if we're aligning with what city council wants to do. Yeah, it's interesting because most of these, like, we're doing them already. Let's
Yeah, but
see.
he's talking about a work plan for next year. They would talk to council about in January.
The next point, it was point 3. So this is out there because it's the comprehensive plan, but it's something that I've seen in some other adjacent municipalities. So this was prepare and maintain adequate general plan, refer to it and make decisions. Wait, what was that? Develop and make available to anyone who wants them good and reliable information, data, and maps. So where I was going with that, I know that the city of Thornton has a development website that's tied to their GIS, which has all of the current permits, like it's tied to their PUD. So anybody can access the PUD documents. I don't know if it's the whole city, but it's a lot of the development that's going on in the city, so people can see.
Yeah, we actually have a map like that that's getting ready to launch
Perfect.
that the public or commissioners or whoever can click on and see what the status of that project is and what project type it is. So we've been working with GIS to get that set up.
Awesome.
And so we will have that development project update map.
Perfect. Because that's one of the big questions that I always get is like, do you know what's going on here? It's like, I have no idea what's going on there. I only know what comes to us. So what it's all posted on the city website. So I'll refer people to the PUD page and things of that sort. And then
Planner of the day. Oh, we also have Planner of the Day.
oh,
So it's cdplanner@c3gov.com.
okay,
And so the public can always reach out if they want to know what the zoning on the property is. They want to know what development is proposed for the property. And so our staff planners rotate through staffing that Planner of the Day.
oh, nice.
And we take inquiries in person at the front counter, on the phone, or by email. And we respond to those usually within 24 hours.
Nice. All right, so the last two that I have, so was item, handy dandy glasses, having a hard time reading here. Tour about as the commission to see what others are doing. Sometimes you'll be uplifted and find out how many light years ahead you are of your neighbor, ahead your neighbors you really are. And sometimes you'll get some ideas worth borrowing. So it might be if we were to attend a planning commission meeting of adjacent communities to see how other communities are engaging this process. And we can talk about scheduling that when we talk about the work plan for the year. And then the last one, appoint a commission representative to appear before elected bodies when it is necessary to explain or sell an action. Don't expect staff to do your job. So that, I think we're getting better with that with our meeting minutes, and there hasn't been any divisive cases that have come up here in the last little bit, but I don't know if that's something that we should be doing or how staff feels about that.
What did he say?
In terms of how they can better communicate.
Controversial.
Yeah.
Projects.
Contrary to what the book is saying.
So the question is, how do you handle more controversial cases?
Or should we be doing this?
I think if I understood you correctly, is the book suggesting that you should be summarizing things to council and not expecting staff to do that?
No, it's just saying, I was wanting to just float this out. So it's just
Okay.
not my idea. It was just something that,
Right,
This
we
is
just want to
not-
make sure we're understanding.
and it's something that we're not currently doing. So I'm just going to read it verbatim for what it says. Appoint a commission representative to appear before the elected body when it is necessary to explain or sell an action. Don't expect staff to do your job.
So I've seen that happen in other jurisdictions where either the planning commission chair or a member goes to council the night that the case is going to be heard and explains to council what your action was and what the nature of your recommendation is. I haven't heard council ask for that, so I wouldn't want to step on toes and kind of go above and beyond. But that's what I think the
Sure.
author's talking about.
And it just seems that's why I was bringing up if it was a divisive case or if there was something really, I don't know.
Well, and, you know, I think you can trust staff here to represent your viewpoints.
Mhm.
Obviously, we prepare the minutes for you. We prepare the staff report that identifies what your action was. But in some communities, maybe there's not that same level of trust
Sure.
that the staff's going to accurately represent what the commission's position was. And if there's a difference between the staff recommendation and the commission recommendation, you know, and you wanted to make sure that that was characterized correctly to the council, I think that's what the author is alluding to.
And
Agreed.
Heather's there at council when there's something that has come from here that's going to be going before council. And then I usually update my city attorney, who is the attorney that is at council. So there's knowledge about what happened here on the floor those nights.
Sure. And I was only bringing that up because of previous feedback that we had heard. It was someone had given feedback. I think city council had given feedback to someone and then it came back to us. And I think that was the whole point of the meeting minutes, is that we had discussed points and they didn't really know how we had discussed or why our decision was rendered in the way that it was rendered.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that we're trending in the correct way. I just wanted to bring it up for the rest of the commission. Not saying it's something we need to adopt. It's just for a bon mot. So that's all I had, were those few points.
Other thoughts and ideas? Okay. So my takeaways are, you want to meet with the new city council after they're seated, after they're sworn in, whether that's December or January. And you want to develop a work plan for the commission before that meeting so that you can share that with the council. You want to take efforts to communicate with the public through the land development code this year, through that open house on May 6th, and through your public hearing that you'll hold on the code on July 1st. And you're thinking about attending other planning commission meetings in other jurisdictions to see how they operate and see if there's any takeaways that you want to bring back.
And if staff would have any recommendation of any of the commissions that you all feel that would be.
Yeah, maybe, Westminster or North Glen or Thornton would be ideas of who you'd want to go to.
Yeah, Brighton's one that we work with a lot. They're in our same county, and
Yeah.
And Adams County, would Adams County be?
Yeah,
Commissioner's
it's
Court
just,
is a little different.
yeah, counties are slightly different.
Okay.
They're held to different laws. So if you think about the county, can only do what they're expressly authorized to do. So what the code says they can do. The city, a home rule city is specifically is pretty much allowed to do whatever they want unless it's expressly stated they can't. So it's a different structure.
Would Aurora be another?
Okay.
Because they're
Oh,
partially
thank
in
you.
Adams County as well.
Sure.
For August 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
To get to September.
We work
Okay.
with Aurora on stuff as well.
And Sung's pointing out that I misspoke on that planning commission hearing date. That would be August 5th, that we'd be taking the draft of the LDC, not
Okay.
July. Yeah, that was on the LDC. You know, I don't know if you ever want to get in the van and tour, but to drive around, look at other developments, learn from other communities.
Well, and Commissioner Van Huzen and I were speaking during the break. Just another point is just the URA, just to get understanding of that and about that process.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Are you asking for like a joint with them? You want to meet them or you just want us to tell you
Well,
about it?
Well, it was the previous head. He had came in, it was one of the cases those cases that were coming through.
Yeah.
I think it was adjusting the taxation on that parcel so that we had some engagement with them.
Yeah.
And that director had mentioned that if we wanted to tour as a commission to that collection of people, we could. So that might be another good idea to set up to get in the van and go look at the URA sites within the city.
So maybe we put that on the work plan
Mhm.
for next year.
Yes.
Or we could also tackle that in the fall, once we're done with the land development code.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Well, anything else for this evening before we wrap up?
I don't believe so.
Great. I guess we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.